Gary Neville, it's lovely to see you. It feels like an age since we've done this. How are you? How are you coping in isolation?
Just something, I'm up and down a little bit, as you can imagine. I'm okay. I've got into a routine a little bit, but I don't usually ever get down or like, feel in a way, low about things. I always feel like I'm too busy. I've got so much to look forward to. But then you sort of like, weekends have been a real struggle, where it's okay during the week where you've got things like this and you're doing stuff and you've got things to look forward to during the day. But then you think Saturday and Sunday where you just got sort of like, what do you do? And I'm not a television person in terms of watching series or stuff like that. So a bit hard work.
I would say out of everybody I know, your usual speed is genuinely 100 miles an hour. What sort of speed would you say you're at now in your life?
I would say I'm running at about 40. Yeah.
Like you're playing.
Yeah. Back to the last 2 years of my United career. No, it's just weird. I feel like the weekends are a struggle. Honestly, Saturdays for some reason. It's not because I actually enjoy my Saturdays where we haven't even got a game during the season. But if there's something on the Sunday, then you've got something to look forward to. But it's not just even the football stuff, really. I just think that because obviously if you're so busy, then you go to nothing, which is what's happening at the moment, and you're not allowed to go out. You do lose a lot, and I won't take it for granted again what we do and how lucky we are to go to the grounds and just obviously watch football matches and enjoy it.
This has become the norm, hasn't it? Doing these sort of video conversations, and it's very odd. And I mean, even now, I can't believe we're this far advanced as a world, not just as a country, and we still have to deal with delays and Wi-Fi problems and all this sorts of stuff. And I've been watching what you do on Sky Sports and the football show, and it is brilliant. But there must have been, and I asked this question with full knowledge that there must have been some very awkward moments. What's been the most awkward?
Well, it wasn't awkward. This morning we were supposed to have Claudio Ranieri on because it's the anniversary of Leicester winning the league a few years ago, and you just didn't make it on. It's just the delay, not knowing when someone's going to come in and speak. You can't obviously. It's just quite awkward. You get used to it. I think ultimately people at home are used to it as well, and obviously most people at the moment are doing things like this. So I think in the future a lot more meetings will happen like this, but it's not really good for broadcasting. It's not good for television. It is better when you're all in that room together and there's that energy that exists and you can feel what's going on.
It's amazing, isn't it, how much you miss just from a split second of time between one person talking and the other, a little bit of eye contact or just sort of reading the room, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the difficult bit, not knowing who's going to come in next, sort of, like you say, you're cutting across each other quite a bit. It looks a little bit unprofessional and you sort of, you speak, and it's just, no, it's not great. But ultimately we are where we are, we know why we're here, and we're trying to get some stuff out just to sort of keep ourselves going as much as the broadcasters, really.
No, it's a little bit as well. I like to think of it as you're keeping a bit of normality for everybody at home as well, because even though it's weird and we're now, in screens and doing this sort of stuff, I think people do appreciate it. One thing I was going to say on the Zoom chat situation is the weirdest one that I find is when you think someone's frozen, but they're not. And you go, oh, I think XXX is frozen up. And they're like, no, I'm still here. And you're like, oh.
They're just bored listening to you.
Maybe it was just my question. They didn't quite do it. How have you been? I mean, you look very well kept, I have to say. You look great as ever. I'd probably run an iron over that shirt one more time. But one thing that absolutely killed me, which I've been enjoying so much, is Roy Keane. First of all, Roy Keane on video call. And then Roy Keane talking about his beard with Dave Jones. It's probably my favourite moment of isolation so far.
Yeah, I think Dave, to be fair, didn't quite read his audience as well as maybe he could have. So as he started the question, I went, Dave, you're not going there, are you? You're not going there. He's not going to give you much on this. Sort of, asking Roy about his beard or his hair, or why would you go down that route? It's just not something that's going to bring you sort of much in return. And Dave got the glare and a little bit of a smirk, and me and Carol just left there laughing like crazy, just chuckling like, is it Muttley? Was it Muttley the dog on there? Yeah, that's what we were like, me and Carol. Just
like a wheeze. What about homeschooling? Because we're hearing from so many parents that are now taking this time when they have to focus on their kids, not just to keep them entertained and spend some time with them, but also help them learn. Is that something that you've been trying to do?
Laura, honestly, this is no word of a lie. I could actually prove it to you if you wanted me to. I could take my iPad upstairs. From 8:30 in the morning, they park themselves in their bedrooms. They sit at their desks. They do it till break, and they come down and get a drink. And they go back in there. They're so disciplined about it. It's untrue. One of them doesn't quite like it as much as the other, but they're brilliant. And we don't see them till 4 o'clock. Honestly, if you want me to, I could take you upstairs now. I could show you them both sat there in front of the screens.
Let's talk football, shall we?
Yes.
Salford, there's been a lot of questions because we put this out and we said, look, if you want to ask a question to Gary, like maybe you can just tweet us or whatever. And there were lots of people that came in. First of all, how is everyone connected with Salford doing at the moment? And how are the players? Are you in regular contact with them?
No, I'm in regular contact. We have a weekly session with the chairman, the sporting director, the manager, and the medical team. And they're in contact with the players all the time. They're doing the Zoom training sessions like everybody else is. I mean, have you done those interviews where you've had managers and coaches and you say, what are the players doing? They say, yeah, they're doing Zoom yoga and Zoom coaching sessions. It gets a little bit boring after a bit that you know what they're doing. I wish actually that, we should have done this with Salford really. I wish they should have beamed live. They should have shot live the sessions that the players were doing for the fans to join in with them, a little bit Joe Wick style in my opinion, so that fans around the country could do some of the sessions. But that's what the players are doing. They're all good. They've been spoken to regularly by the coaching staff. The staff are good. They just want football to return. And on the football side, they want football to return. But on the medical side, there are reservations about it because of the health and safety issues.
I've got a question here. This is one that was tweeted in by Tom Rodge. And he says, does Gary Neville, being a football club owner, want the season to finish?
I do want the season to finish as a football club owner. As a football person, just generally, whether it's in my Sky role, whether it's in my ex-player role, whether it's being an owner of a club. But I also, as an owner of a club, feel a great sense of responsibility towards the players, the people who we're responsible for them, at the Salford players, the Salford staff. And would I expose the Salford players and staff to any health risk? No, I wouldn't. And that's the problem we've got at the moment as owners, is ultimately we would be putting our people we work with at risk, and that's the bit I can't get my head around. It's the bit the medical team at Salford can't get our heads around, because you would be subjecting them to a heightened risk than they would ordinarily be.
It's a real tug of war, isn't it, between wanting to see football continue, but also wanting to stress that you'd never want anything to be done in an unsafe environment. And it feels like expressing your desire for football to continue is almost declaring that you would like that to happen over health, but it's not the case, is it, ever?
No, and I keep hearing people saying that, we'll put health first. Well, if we do, we wouldn't be even considering playing football. But I get it, for football players, they want desperately to, they're really worried at lower league levels about the finances, their money, their contracts. We've got at Salford, I think, 14 players that are either on loan or at the club that are out of contract in 2 months. And it's hundreds of players up and down the country that if football doesn't take place, they won't have any sight of income. And these are not players on the sort of big money at Premier League clubs. So you have got genuine worry that exists, and that's why they want to play. They're desperate to play, but it's difficult.
Can I just ask, I know that somebody actually tweeted this one in as well. Alan Meeks sent a message saying, wouldn't it be better to scrap a season that hasn't started yet and finish the current one? What would, I know that you're in the camp of wanting to finish the season, whatever happens. What would the benefits of scrapping the season now be? Why are people calling for it?
The big problem, I think it's less of a problem at Premier League level, but the massive problem at EFL 1 and 2, the problems that exist are you've got 700 players, 50% of the players are out of contract on June 30th. So let's say that this current season was finished, say, in September, October, you'd have completely different squads. There's one thing that I'm absolutely sure about, and we know, is that the clubs are not going to, the clubs that release those players on June 30th, they're not going to carry on paying those players into October, November. They haven't got the money to, and I wouldn't expect them to. So you're talking about the integrity of the competition is completely lost, because there would be completely different squads finishing the same season. So I think it's an impossible thing to do, to finish the season later than June, July, because of the situation with players out of contract.
With the Premier League, and we are focusing on the Premier League in the media, it feels quite heavily, but like you say, there's a lot more to discuss further down the footballing pyramid, and how it would affect the clubs in the way that they're run and finances. Because the thing is just saying that football needs to be cancelled and forgotten for now and just focus on health, you do slightly skirt over the issue that it's livelihoods of players, but not just players, the non-playing staff as well, and how it affects them and their families because of their income.
That's the big sort of, I think of it as having sort of like the positive voice on one shoulder, which says, go for it. These players are mainly don't fall into the vulnerable category. They know the risks that they will be taking. They're accepting of the risks they will be taking. But and on this side, you've got that other voice, which is a negative voice, which says, we've got a couple of players and coaching staff at Salford who've got respiratory problems or diabetes or asthma. And then you think to yourself, well, just picture one of those players, members of staff, in hospital, and think of the responsibility and the guilt that you would feel that you've tried to play those games because of economic reasons and employment reasons, which are valid reasons. I understand at this moment in time it is a really difficult situation in terms of football players, but everybody in every industry thinking about the fact that it's an economic crisis as well as a health crisis. So it's a real big problem, but everybody keeps saying, no matter who you are, I've not heard one person yet on any interview, on any TV station that I've watched in the last 5 weeks say anything other than health comes first. So if health comes first, then the economic element comes second. And ultimately at that point, then you would make the sensible decision, which would be to only return at a safe time to do so.
We have another message that's been tweeted in. This is from Bernard, and he says, what do you all think that should happen if the season isn't able to finish on time? Do you void it, points per game, or something else?
Do you know something? I think at Premier League level, I think that it would be, as much as I'd have a little giggle,
I know you get there.
A little giggle. No, I think it would be ridiculous not to give Liverpool the league. However, when you get to the bottom of the league, I think it would also be equally ridiculous to relegate teams when it's so close. We've just done a show this morning with Carl Robinson on League One. And I didn't realise that if it went to the points per game method, that I think Wycombe in 8th would actually go into second space and go up if they won their game in hand. And that's like, wow. I've not looked I look at League Two obviously a lot, and I look at the Premier League a lot. They're the two sort of, with Salford and with obviously the job with Sky, they're the areas I look at. I didn't realise the difficulties and challenges that would exist in League One around the points per game. If you gave the existing two teams at the top the promotion spots, you'd have an absolute war on your hands with clubs that could go above those teams in the obviously other positions below. So I think it's a real difficult one when it comes to the other leagues, but we've seen that leagues have been awarded in other countries, and in certain countries they just null and void it. I don't think null and void will be an option with what's happening at the Premier League level.
So if it were to be awarded, or whatever way the season would be finished, and Liverpool would be crowned because of the circumstances, would you still leave the country?
No, I wouldn't leave the country. I think it's less painful seeing them win it this way, without crowds in the stadium, without me being in there. I think I'd have my little Asterix T-shirt printed for the little Asterix badge for the season on Sky next season. just for a bit of fun. No, look, they deserve to win the league, the best team in the league, and they'll rightly, I think, at some point get awarded with the Premier League medal. But it won't stop. I was having a little bit of a joke in the next 20 years.
You've obviously, you've lifted titles, you've done it all, really. Can you imagine having to accept a medal or a trophy in a scenario where there's no crowd? And one of the scenarios that was thrown up is that they'll have to do it in an office. Can you imagine that? It would just...
No, look, that's the situation we're in at the moment. This has just shocked everybody all around the world. There are hundreds of thousands of people obviously losing their lives. Everything is affected. No one's seen anything like it for over 100 years. And it's just bizarre. It's surreal. It's surreal to everybody what's going on at the moment. And in football, obviously, football does play second fiddle, as much as it's such an important part of things that are going on in this country. But like you say, I think that, no, I can't ever have imagined, winning a trophy without actually having completed. You used to say, until you're mathematically impossible, it's mathematically impossible that you'd always say that you've won the league and you don't put the medal around your neck. But Liverpool are so far in front; they're worthy champions, and I think they will be awarded the title. But it won't be the way in which they'll want it. Forget what the rest of us think. They won't want it like this. They'll want to make sure that they do it the right way and finish the season off. But I think that's going to be very difficult unless there is some sort of miracle quarantine solution that comes up in the next few weeks.
I read an article where PSG were suggesting that they would travel to different countries to complete the Champions League. They've obviously been handed the title. That's how that's working in France. No sport until September at the earliest.
Yeah.
It does almost feel in a way that what you said about quarantine, about playing games in some sort of controlled environment, that it could maybe go that way.
It could. That's the only way it can happen, really. Is for some sort of, like you say, almost like a locked off area, quarantine zone that reduces the risk, not removes the risk, but reduces the risk of infection to players. Because once the team starts to get infected, their players start to get infected, or staff get infected, and you've got a big problem. And I mentioned this morning that I felt that there may be one or two countries in Europe which could host the Premier League, which is virtually coronavirus free, where it would be a lot safer and a lot less risk, but also more chance of finishing the season if the Premier League wanted to do so.
We have some lighter questions, because I am obviously very aware that you spend all day, every day at the moment talking about these possible scenarios, and realistically, no one knows, do they? No one really knows. It's probably going to have to come, well, it will come from the top down, Gary. I mean, before we move on to some of these lighter questions, it will take somebody in a position of power to just take the lead and say, look, this is what we're going to do. Unfortunately, some people will not be happy with the outcome, but in a situation like this, you just can't please everybody, can you?
No, and that's going to be the problem with obviously not completing the season, that you're going to disappoint teams. You're actually going to make a lot more teams relieved as well if you put off relegation. Teams that are sixth from bottom now, fifth, fourth from bottom, that could potentially lose lots of income by going down, will want the season potentially to be finished. There are going to be potential lawsuits left, right and centre if a decision is made that's unpopular with a lot of clubs. And that's where the null and void comes in, where you just cancel the season. You either cancel it or you either finish it. The in-between is going to bring challenges. But like you say, I think what will happen is there will be some in-between solutions that the leagues come up with, mainly because of at the top of the Premier League at the moment in time, there's one team that are well clear that would obviously win the league. So it seems that it would be too brutal a decision, it feels like, at that level to be able to take to make it null and void.
Which is very big of you to admit and to say that. So next time somebody says you're biased, I think you quite clearly say that you're not.
Well, no, sorry. I wouldn't be saying that if I was in charge of the Premier League. I've just got no power. Doesn't matter what I say on here.
So these are a few more light-hearted questions. This is David Patterson. Would you rather be stuck in a lift with Jamie Carragher or Roy Keane?
I think Roy.
Really? Why?
Yeah. He's charming. He's got good conversation and funny. That's not to say that Jamie's not charming, got good conversation and funny. It's just that screech, innit? It's that screech in your ear. That's that that pitch. I just imagine that for more than. I have it for 4 hours on Monday Night Football. Imagine it for like a couple of days.
I mean, you must find it when he answers the question, because his answers are very long, aren't they?
So are mine, to be fair.
They are.
Well, apart from that one.
That one was quite quick. I actually have to agree with you, because at the Christmas party, I spent some time in Roy's company. I sat next to him for what wasn't a very long period of time, but I found him charming as well. And I was terrified of him beforehand. But he does have a certain thing, doesn't he? I
think that's the thing, that Roy's a really good storyteller. He's charming company, he's been down to a few Salford games this season. Obviously, worked with on Sky as well, it's really. I always think he's fascinating to listen to, and compelling, I think, is the word, on television, but off screen as well. I think Roy would shade it over Jamie, I think.
Okay, so we are discussing two big personalities with both of those guys. So here's a question that links in with it. Rob says, out of all the players you've played with, who had the strangest personality? You can't pick yourself.
Strangest personality that I ever played with.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting, that one, because I can think of a few.
Yeah, I wouldn't say strange personality. I would say Gaza was the biggest personality, the most unique personality that I've ever played with. The things that he used to do were just mad, but funny. I loved it because he was the complete opposite of me. You say to me, you know, what was he like as a football player? Really serious, do the professional things, always eat at the right times. And then you've got the complete opposite in an England dressing room, which is Paul Gascoigne. But that's where I think, you know, I was really, all players are tolerant of each other in terms of the different types thing, you know, the different types of characters. And Gaza was just absolutely mad. Some of the things that he used to do were absolutely brilliant. And that he was definitely the biggest personality. And I wouldn't say strange. No, he wasn't strange. He was a really good lad.
Was that sort of unpredictable nature fun to be around on the football pitch? I suppose he was totally focused, but were there elements of it that were brilliant and also elements of it that were frustrating?
No, I never got frustrated by him at all. You know, I never, because obviously what I say on the football pitch, he was serious and he'd do things properly. Off the pitch, particularly when you're away in a tournament for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, you know, you need those types of characters to keep you going. You know, like in lockdown now, you have a conversation with someone that makes you laugh or makes you smile and just gives you that sort of different perspective. And he would always try and do that. That's why it was sad when he got left out of the tournament in '98. It was such a big bloke to everyone else in the squad because everyone loved having him around. Everyone loved him being there, not just from a football point of view, but from his character and personality. Because they say there's very few characters in the game anymore. There are very few characters like him. In terms of just the way in which he would make you laugh constantly. He saw it as his duty to enjoy himself and make you laugh all the time. And there are very few people like that.
I was going to say, who springs to mind when you think of a modern day Gaza? And I suppose not when we're talking about personalities, because it's difficult to know them all, isn't it? But in terms of what you see on the football pitch, is there anyone that replicates him?
Nothing like him. Nothing that I can think of like him. I mean, to be fair, I forgot... Jamie Mackey at Oxford doing that video the other week, the TikTok video. Yeah, to me, things like that. Yeah, I mean, I think things like that are just like that type of character in the dressing room has a massive impact on everybody else. And I think even for us to see it, sort of like, you know, for him to share that with us, it takes some guts to do stuff like that. And, you know, you've got to be a bit mad. You've got to be, you know, free up here in your mind, and I personally think that people like that are needed in the game. Even though I'm not the type of person that would do that, I love people like that.
We are seeing, I think, a little bit more personality from our players, aren't we?
We are, and I think it was important after the first couple of weeks where I think that everyone was a bit working out what was going on, that they've started to do things, they've started to share things with us, things that they're doing at home. And I think it's important that it equalises everybody because they've got this perception of being obviously protected and not doing interviews that much. And when they're doing interviews, it's all really serious. So it is good to see them. And football players, in my knowledge, are some of the most outgoing, funny, good to be around people that I've been with. And I wouldn't just say that. You know, I've been 10 years out of football. But they're a good bunch to be around. They're usually good fun. And I think it's good for us to see that sometimes. Did the interview the other day, Jamie Redknapp did the interview with Billy Gilmore. It was absolutely fantastic, just sort of seeing his interview on television and how he speaks and just being at home. And players don't allow, rightly so, I was the same when I was playing, don't allow access into their sort of personal space as much, and they don't allow access into what they're doing off the pitch as much because they're worried about being criticised for being distracted. And we would be the first at times if we thought players were distracted away from what is their most important thing, which is football. But actually, maybe it's us that need to lighten up a bit, and then the players in turn would lighten up and they would show us a little bit more of their characters.
Speaking of lightening up a bit, something came onto Twitter the other day which horrified me and amused me in equal measures, and it was a face swap between you and I. And I've been asked to ask the question, who do you think came off worse in that face swap? I think you look like Iggy Pop, just a dead ringer.
I think I saw it. You went from looking all right to disastrous, and I went from looking disastrous to even worse. Oh, here we go. Oh, my goodness.
Isn't it hideous?
I think I've come out better.
I think you might have done actually. Blonde suits you. Did you ever?
Yeah, I think I've improved.
A couple of highlights, maybe.
Yeah.
I think
I might go for it tonight.
Maybe you should. You've got nothing else to do in isolation.
Yeah, exactly.
You might as well do a Sergio Aguero. Oh, there we go. Get your girls to bleach your hair for you.
Yes.
I bet they love that. I think this is a terrifying look into my future. My nan has a similar haircut to this. The sort of short and the more senior lady ends up doing it, doesn't she? Sort of goes.
You look a bit like Dot Cotton, don't you?
I got loads of Stephen Mulhern's. Apparently, I look like Stephen Mulhern.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, last thing I want you to do before we let you go is obviously by looking in the surrounding behind you, it looks like a very posh room, lots of nice art. There's a question here from Rich Stone, and he says, any iconic memorabilia around? He wants to know what the most iconic United shirt that you're wearing, but let's cram it all into one. Have you got any memorabilia around you at the moment? Doesn't matter if you don't.
I don't have memorabilia I don't have memorabilia in this house, in any house I've ever lived in, because I don't want to, because I live football so much outside of this house, my house. I'd go home and I just want complete. But what I did, I got it's weird, I got like a townhouse, and I bought a little house next door, and I made it into a bar, and it's got shirts everywhere. It's the first time I've done something that's got all my shirts everywhere. Do you want me to show you a little bit? I've never shown it to anyone.
That would be amazing.
I'll have to go outside though. So I built like a little pub next door. 1 second. Here we go. 1 second. Let's put the lights on. It's got some rubbish in it as well. All right. So there you see that?
Oh my God, that is amazing. Move your finger out of the way because it's just.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. Wow, look at that.
There you go. That was David Beckham signed that to my dad on his 50th birthday, and he died 5 years ago. So that's like 20 years old. That shirt. That's one of his shirts from a match.
Is it? Hey, this is quite special.
These are Harold Riley, who's a very famous local artist, and different things.
Wow.
That's what the England team presented me with when I won my 50th cap. You see it?
Look at that. Go a little bit closer to that one. Wow.
You see it there?
The international cap. Those are great photos as well, aren't they? That is
beautiful. That's actually Euro 96 signed shirt, that.
No way. Is everyone on that?
Yeah, they're all on there. And then that's when I went over to watch Bex in Madrid.
Mm-hmm. Look at that. Did you have to prize that off of him, or did he just give it to you naturally?
He gave it to me at the end of the match, actually.
Wow.
And then this was a local artist did this for me. It's like the pub thing, extra time needed. And it's the boss with the pointing towards the watch.
That is brilliant. When you walk into this room, do you feel like a little bit like a fan?
A little bit. To be fair, it's the first time I've ever done it. And then a lot of these gifts, I've not bought these. These are people who have sent things to see.
Do you, so for example, when you're looking at that, what's the first memory that comes back?
Just basically it's just Liverpool, just that celebration. I got banned for 2 weeks, 2 games for that, and fined 10 grand.
Nowadays you couldn't do it, could you? Because you'd be inciting the crowd.
Exactly.
Are you the person that goes behind the bar and serves, or do you always sit there and get somebody else to do it?
Just sit here at the front. That's a little bit of memorabilia. All the stuff, all my medals are in the National Football Museum in Preston. So all my medals and all my shirts that are like, my treble shirts and all those things are not here. I don't have those things in here.
To be fair, I didn't expect we would get such a revealing answer to that question. It's a brilliant one. So thank you so much. The fact that I said, do you have any memorabilia? And you went, I've got a house full of it. It's brilliant. Thank you so much for being so welcoming. And I know
thank you, Laura.
Gary, it's a pleasure seeing you. Good luck.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.